that data. And those searches I gave you are real live examples of that. So the whole concept of peer-to-peer is something that we're seeing now, an emerging threat that people out there are searching for. One of the specific things, how many here do their free credit report every year? If you don't do it, I mean, it's free, it's legitimate, and you can sort of keep an eye on things that are going on. But don't do one thing. Don't be running peer-to-peer network. Do that and save it to your hard drive as a PDF. We've seen, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of people that have shared out their hard drives and have, Bob's credit report, Carol's credit report. And that stuff the bad guys are sucking down, number one. And secondly, they're actually setting up data aggregation services by sector in some cases. So if you want information on medical facilities, there's a server in Chile that you can lease for about $5,000 a week or 500 euros a day. And you can have whatever data you want off of that, and then they cut off your service to it. That's a service that they're providing. They're criminals. It's a felony, but they're providing this service to you. And you tell them what you're looking for. If you're looking for financial services, no problem. Go to the server in Auckland. If you want to find something on terrorist tools and tactics, one of them in, I think it's, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. The one on financial services in Cairo, the one on terrorist stuff is in Auckland. Tells you how to make sarin gas, how to bypass or try to get through U.S. customs without acting suspicious. I mean, I can't even do that. But yet it has a little how-to on this stuff that's being shared on the peer-to-peer networks. And the interesting piece of that, for those of us that have ever had to run security in an enterprise environment, one of the things we try to do is we try to put aside what humans may wind up doing. So we try to have technical controls in place that block one's ability to use peer-to-peer networks in an environment where we don't permit it, generally which causes you to block a certain port. And what happens, some of this software even goes so far as to say when it does the install, it'll try to send a packet out through that particular port and goes, oops, sorry, it's blocked. It appears that your system administrator has blocked this port. Do you want to bypass that? And most people click yes. And then it drives it through port 80, so it goes out through his regular web traffic. So it actually bypasses, circumvents the security controls that one might have in an environment in order to do these sort of things. And a lot of people aren't aware of this. I mean, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at one thing up here. There's about 120 files I've got here from patient records, from one doctor's machine that had a whole ton of music on there that was being shared out, but also had all these medical records too that were being shared out that had all kinds of information. And the last one on this, before I stop and see if you all have any questions, is the concept of the people don't realize that they're doing this. People don't realize that bad guys are out there actually collecting this stuff, and even somewhat security-related things that they do can come back and bite them. Real story once again. The most recent document I found, I think it was over 18,000 incidents of it that I found on peer-to-peer systems around the world. One of them was, apparently this woman had been a victim of either credit card fraud or somehow there was a mix-up on her credit card bill. So doing like most people do, I presume she called the bank and said, listen, hi, I'm Jane Smith, and I see this charges on my credit card, which were not me. And they said, okay, write a letter, send it to us, that you challenge those credit things. I mean, I've had to do that with a mistake on one of my credit bills. So I figured that's the way it was done. So she types up the letter, says, hi, my name is Jane Smith. My social security number is 123-456-789. My credit card number is 123-456-789. My address is such and such. My PIN number is such and such. This is the transaction number I'm challenging. Please put a hold on this or investigate this because this was not my charge. Saves it as a document on her computer system, which is shared out on a peer-to-peer network. That's why one of the terms on there that the bad guys search for are credit. They just look for that thing, and guess what? Her letter was just slammed all over the internet. Made her a double victim in this case. And hopefully that that credit card has been long shut down, closed out, or whatever the case may be in it. So sort of the last thing I want to take just a really quick minute on is sort of the other end of the spectrum, the home, end user, consumer space, small, medium businesses. As we get better at large enterprises, if universities get better about security, sort of the people left out there in no man's land are the end users in the consumer space. And I don't know if anybody's ever participated in, but in police department they have the block watch or neighborhood watch programs where you can all get together and have some hors d'oeuvres and talk about how to cut your plants in front of your windows and how to make sure your doors are locked, even alarm systems and stuff like that. We don't do the same thing for information security. And so when we go visit families and friends, we may be using to show them how cool Google Earth Live is, or show them all this nice stuff. But how many times we in the security profession actually sort of get together and do a neighborhood block and just go up and down your block and make sure people have antivirus and automatic updates turned on and these sort of things. These are the sort of things that are creating problems for us. Because when we start talking about my last topic, such as botnets are not out there generally from large enterprises. They're from consumer space that's got broadband, DSL, or cable that's out there that don't know any better. They don't even know that they've been botted. And the bot herders depend on that. They collect these things, everything DDoS attacks. The big increase we've seen in spam in the past 6 months or so has not been because our spam filters aren't working on the SMTP servers that we've got out there. We're locking those things down very nicely. But what happens is now they're using the home users that's got 4, 6 megabit per second bandwidth in there. They're just using those as spam relays. Nigerian scams. I mean, you name it. That's what they're using for today. So the whole concept of the end user / consumer is some space that we need to put some focus on as well. So with that, I've got about 5 minutes according to my clock up here. I thank nobody for falling asleep through this, but turn it over to you. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, solutions.
I'm curious to know where you see some of our biggest needs in the next, let's say, 5 years or so. We don't expect you to be the perfect prognosticator, but what are the biggest needs?
Yeah, I think there's 3 primary areas. One is the end user consumer space. It took us, almost 20 years to reach, or a little over 20 years to reach 1 billion users online, and of course the major chunk of that took place post 1994 when the World Wide Web became publicly acceptable. We will probably take less than 5 years to add on the second billion, with everything becoming IP enabled and everything else, everybody carrying a mobile device. So that's sort of that area. The end user consumer, we can't expect them to become security experts. So that's sort of the frontier that we really need to pay attention to, worry about. The second one is very closely linked to that, is the mobile devices. I am with this is probably my most recent one. I'm one step away from having IP-based phone services over this. Skype mobile, whatever type of mobile IP-based clients you've got in this is going to be another thing, which means this becomes a really, really big, valuable target. Right now, there's a lot of other stuff out there I can take pot shots at, but the more we depend on these, the more it's going to be a target for us. And a third thing is clearly the issue of the application security. As we develop cooler, faster, tighter code and everything else, we're going to continue to see people poke holes at the application side. And if we don't do something about it now, it's going to just get worse and worse for us in the future. Anybody else? Please. Just your mic, please. Thanks.
What do you think one of the largest barriers is to sort of setting up that community watch for information technology like you suggested? I mean, I know once you said that personally, I thought about my own situation. Like, I go home and, my mom's always like, oh, the subscription thing needs to be renewed for antivirus. And, being selfish or whatever, I just don't want to deal with that. I just don't want to hear about that. And then thinking to myself, gosh, what if you imagine a whole block of like 100 homes and you're one of 5 people that have any level of expertise in this, and now you have 100 people calling you and saying, oh, I just got a pop-up and it said that something was trying to reach the internet. What should I do? Right. I don't want to deal with that. But other than that, I mean, I guess just your thoughts on why you don't see that happening, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting too because, and as you've mentioned it perfectly, I mean, we all get tagged to be the CIO for our neighbors and friends everywhere we go. The minute they find out that we're in IT security, we're the ones getting the phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. My screen went blank. Yeah, you can't kick out the plug. Sorry about that. But you're absolutely correct. Why that's not taking place is I don't think the emphasis has been there. I've been working with the International Association of Crime Prevention Association. I think there's some acronym. I forget what it is. But basically the ones that do the block watches. And there's been a couple agencies around the United States have actually put together a little DVD that you can give out and say, okay, here's how to be secure. Turn on auto updates, turn on auto subscriptions, turn this on. Don't turn on the phishing filters with the new browsers. Your Safari, Opera, IE, all of them have the anti-phishing stuff built in there.